Turning now to another area of groundbreaking innovation, 3D printers are changing the face of manufacturing, but they're also raising serious concerns. 7 months ago, the world's first 3D printed gun was fired. And last week, Congress took up a bill that would ban guns from being fabricated by printers. Still, entrepreneurs are excited about the possibilities.
A.J. Perez runs New Valence Robotics, a Cambridge startup that builds 3D printers for the education market.
3D printing is a way to create a 3D object that you design in software by building it up layer by layer.
His printers lay down heated plastic threads to build up three-dimensional shapes.
So you take a lot like a hot glue gun, move it around in the XY plane, and then you lower the plate so you build it up over time, layer by layer.
Perez shows us how to make a simple design. A chess pawn.
So I want it to be really high speed, but I want it to be medium strength. So I put it in the middle on the strength bar. I want to keep the scale as it is, so I just hit print.
It takes around 30 minutes for the printer to construct the pawn. More complicated designs, such as this Yoda figure, take longer. 3D printing can already be found in other industries, such as aerospace, and it's being used in the medical world to create dentures. But now, retailers like Staples and Office Depot are even selling 3D printers for home use to make your very own Yoda.
All right, joining me now, as she does most Tuesdays, is WGBH News science editor, Dr. Heather Goldstone. Welcome, Heather.
Good to be here.
So these computer-generated milling machines have kind of been around for a long time, but what is the difference between 3D and those?
Well, it's really a completely different mechanism. When you're talking about milling, you're talking about having a block of material. You could even equate it to having a block of wood that you then carve out something from it. So it's what's called a subtractive process. 3D printing really technically is not actually printing, and what the experts would say is it's actually additive manufacturing is the technical term. And so, as we just heard, what you're doing is laying down layers of the material you're trying to manufacture, or in some cases you might lay down a whole layer of raw material and use a laser or some other mechanism to solidify or transform that material into what you want. And the possible benefits of that are that it could be potentially less wasteful, but in addition you can do things like combine different materials when you're printing and potentially make things that are stronger, because instead of having to make two parts and fit them together, you can make the whole part as one.
So recently anyway, this whole focus has been on guns, because we saw that YouTube video that surfaced a couple of months ago with some guy who, you printed a gun and then took it to a shooting range and shot it.
Yeah, and that definitely has been one way that 3D printing has surfaced this year, is the involvement in the gun debate, and really changing the whole question from regulating sales to trying to regulate who can make a gun. And that's really very different. But on the flip side of that, WGBH's Philip Martin also was at a police innovation conference earlier this fall and said police departments were very excited about the ability to use 3D printing to manufacture their guns or manufacture their badges. And to flip it even further on its head, of course, people are using 3D printing to print prosthetics.
Yes, we've seen that. Some little kid had a hand.
You can. Well, and especially for kids, where they're growing so rapidly. Think about how frequently you have to buy kids' shoes. Well, think about prosthetics, and you might need a different one for running than you would need for just walking or daily life. And so the ability to customize and print those yourself, and it goes in all sorts of directions.
So what about environmental benefits? I mean, this is plastic. It doesn't look all that environmentally sound to me.
Well, as I said, the idea, the theory of doing something additively, so only printing as much material as you need to create something potentially that's hollow, it sounds like it could be more efficient. At the moment, it's not really living up to that in most cases. In fact, the energy to 3D print something, it's 10 to 20 times in many cases the energy footprint. Plus, a lot of times there is actually still wastage in that process. It's just a different kind of waste. If you're trying to create something that's hollow, or think of an arch, you actually have to create some support there in order to be able to print that arch or that hollow structure. So you've still wasted that. But I would say the promise is still there. It's a matter of figuring out some of these. And actually, there's a really great example where you can print glass objects just by solidifying sand.
All right. Heather Goldstone, thank you so much.